Hello, I'm a little bit early. I just wanted to get set up and make sure that everything is running. I see there's one other person here. If you would say hello, I would love to know who's here. So in the chat, if you say, hi, I'm here, that would be great. There's two people here. So first of all, I want to thank you for being here. And second of all, if you have yet to subscribe and like my videos, it would be such an honor for you to subscribe and to like. What that does for me is to lets me know that you're here and that you're interested in what I have to say. And you can also let me know what questions you have about spirituality, what challenges you're up against with spirituality and dilemmas, what's happening for you, what questions you have. And I'm happy to address those in either this particular event tonight or another one. So let me know what you're thinking, subscribe and like, and that would make me really happy just to know that it's important for you, what I'm saying, and it's a value. Tonight, our session tonight is called I'm Busy Distracting Myself from Being Spiritual. And, you know, it made sense when I looked at my own life, how long it took me to get clear about a spiritual path or get clear about what is important to me in terms of having a spiritual path. Hi, Marge. Thanks for being here. And so when I was thinking about who would be here or who would I talk to about this, I was kind of thinking about me and who I was in my 20s and my 30s and pretty much in my 40s. That part of me that was like, what is spirituality and why is it important? And nobody's told me it's important. So it's like part of a religion, but it didn't kind of show up for me. And so those kinds of elements of why we distract ourselves from this subject or this process or this practice of spirituality. So I have four. I'm going to share with you four different reasons why I distract myself from spirituality, or why people distract themselves. And if you have some, let me know. Just put them in the chat so we can see what's true for you too. Perhaps what I'm saying may trigger some that you have that I'm not saying. So it'd be great for you to let us know what you're thinking, what's true for you. The intention for me of these live videos is so that we can engage together in these conversations and we can get clearer about what's going on for each of us and support each other and empower each other to perhaps go a little bit deeper in creating this relationship with our spirituality, spiritual self. So the 5 reasons actually came up with 6 reasons. There's more, but the first one is I haven't a clue where to begin. There's so much information. There's so much out there. There's so many books. It's just too overwhelming. I don't know where to begin. So I'm just going to avoid it, ignore it, distract myself from that whole issue. The second one, I've been given the impression that everything is more important than spirituality. So quite often, and I was raised in Catholic church, we go to church on Sunday, and it was like spirituality and religion took place on Sunday, and the rest of the week was everything else. So I had no sense of spirituality. I had no sense of what I'm supposed to be doing during the week, during my life, other than you're supposed to be kind and you're supposed to be charitable. But I didn't even have a clue about that. So I was given the impression that getting married was more important. I was given the impression that making money is more important. I was given the impression that being a good wife and a good mother, like those things were more important than a spirituality. Number 3 is, again, that kind of goes back to number 1. So there's too much information, too many options, too many paths, and it's too overwhelming. So just going to avoid the whole issue. Number 4, I don't trust myself enough to know my own thoughts I don't trust myself that what I believe is the truth. I don't believe that what I have to say or think is better than what I should be thinking or what I should be doing, the information I've been given from my family or my culture or from Instagram or Facebook. It's like, I don't trust myself enough to know. So I'm just going to avoid the whole issue of that. Number 5 is none of my friends are spiritual. In fact, some of them are atheists. So we don't even talk about spirituality. It's kind of uncomfortable. So we just kind of avoid the whole subject. Number 6, which is a really good one. I'm really stressed out with life, and the best I can do is distract myself with social media, games, Netflix, novels, anything to take my mind off problems. So these are all great reasons to distract ourselves from this thing called spirituality. Totally get it. Been there, done that. So I'm on board with that. I want to say hi to those who have joined us. And if you would say hello in the chat, that would be great, because I'd love to know that you're here, and would love to know that you're here. And if you have a particular way that you distract yourself, or a particular reason why you distract yourself from spiritual practices or spirituality or the whole conversation, let me know in the chat so that we can share that information. That would be great. The way that I was this whole conversation, and I started this playlist of spiritual dilemmas a couple of months ago in January, and I kind of jumped into a sense of a level that I'm presuming that people have a sense of what spirituality is, and the fact of the matter is we don't. Most of us don't. Even I don't mean this as even me, in a sense, as if I have some great whatever. But when I was thinking about today's conversation with you, I'm thinking, what is spirituality? Like, what is it? And what's so important about it? And what came up for me is that we have to go back to the basics, like the real basics. I had to take myself down to the bottom level of what's this about. And what it's about for me is that we're growing a relationship. You're potentially growing a relationship with yourself. I'm going to have a relationship with myself. Now, if we say that, people go, I don't know what you're talking about. There's only me, and this is what I'm doing. It's like, yes, there's you, and then there's a higher you, a higher self you. And what we're doing in the spiritual practices is getting to know who we are in this physical body, and how that person may be different than a higher self, a higher, more wise aspect of ourselves. Hello, Alicia. Thanks for being here. Not why my hand is up. I might as well wave at you. So we have, excuse me. So we have ourselves, and when things happen, when life happens, when circumstance happen, we sometimes become aware of other parts of ourselves. So in this case, we're talking about there's me, and that for a long time, that's all I knew was this me. And then through this being me, I realized that most of the time I wasn't happy being this me. And I started to question and have some questions. And in my teens, I got pretty depressed, and I didn't have anybody to talk to about that. And I didn't have any other context or reality. I didn't have any source of information that would help me be with myself in a different way. This was all I had. And I think so many of us have that level of reality, that this is what I got. I don't have the support. I don't have the family that understands in a way that I can feel safe talking to them. I didn't feel safe being me. So who was I going to talk to? Because I didn't feel safe being me, and I didn't feel safe talking about me. So, but over time, I began to have these experiences of a knowing inside myself that was greater than me, a wiser part of me. And I was able to begin to engage with that part of me that had wiserness about it, more consciousness. So by noticing, okay, this is me, I'm not happy. And then sometimes we can do this through prayer, and we could do this just by asking for guidance. Show me another way to see this. Or if you're there, let me know a way to be with this. So we begin to create a consciousness beyond our own self. The small, let's call it the small self, the small s self. So in spirituality, what we're doing is we're beginning to notice there's the me, and then there's a me that has a higher wisdom, a higher knowing. In the 12-step program, they call it a higher power. And this higher power is here with me always, because we're together. And so I'm cultivating a relationship with this me. And that's really cool. And it's very challenging because sometimes it's hard to know which me is the higher me, and it's a discernment of that process. We'll talk more about that later. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about how we get busy distracting ourselves from being spiritual, and some of the elements of that are really, really important. Marge asks, am I talking about the physical me and or the other you? There's the me, and then there's the me inside my body. The me, if I cut off my arm, if I cut off my arms, if I cut off my legs, if I have a heart transplant, a lung transplant, a liver transplant, kidney transplant, we say, I'm in here. So there's an I in here that's inside our bodies. And so there's the physical vehicle, and there's the me inside that's having thoughts and feelings and sensations. And then if I think about it, I could begin to notice that I'm having thoughts. I'm noticing that I'm having thoughts. So at that point, who's noticing the thinker? Who's noticing that? So now I become aware of a greater consciousness, that there's the me who's thinking, and there's the me that's observing or witnessing and listening to the thinking and the feeling and the sensations. So there's a greater degree of consciousness. We're cultivating awareness. We begin by noticing, and then we grow into being conscious of that and aware of that. And as we do that, then we become more at choice about what's important to us, what's of value to us. Where do we want to put our energy? Where do we want to put our heart's desire? And that is where we get to be in choice. And this is where dilemmas show up, because some of us go, I just want to do what my friends are doing because that's what's important. Or, I see people going to India, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to India and I'm going to learn about spirituality there. Marge again says, so there are many levels of being. Yes, we're very multiple. We have multiple dimensions, but that's beyond the basics. I want to really stay with the basics, but there is these levels of being that we cultivate. We can only do that one step at a time. We can only do that by beginning by cultivating an awareness that there's me, and then there's this other consciousness that may be useful to guide me in a way that will bring me more serenity, more contentment, fulfillment, maybe more love or more joy or more abundance. So going back to the basics, the spirituality is, in a sense, building a capacity to have a relationship with myself. Now, the other element that where it gets spiritual and where it gets into a different, that divinity place or that divineness or the sacredness or the spirituality is like that area that says, everything is spiritual, which I see everything as being spiritual, and everything is sacred. There's a sacredness and a divinity and a divineness to everything. But that's my perspective. For somebody who's an atheist, that's not what's true. But cultivating spirituality is cultivating the relationship with myself. And at some point, this might be when somebody's 3 years old, this might be when somebody's 85 or somewhere in between, we somehow have an experience of something that takes us into the divine, to takes us into a sacred moment. They call it peak experiences. We have an awe moment. There's a moment where we have it could be a metaphysical phenomena. We might see images. We might see visions. We might experience a whisper from an angel. We don't know, but we begin by having an experience that is otherness, and the experience is one of a divinity, divineness. And that's where I think where we begin to build like, okay, there's something out there beyond me, this physical and person inside here. There's something beyond me, and I'm curious about that. So for me, that's really, really important that we start there, that this is about having a relationship with myself and my higher self. I want to grow my ability, my capacity to be on this planet as a good person and to contribute in some way. I don't know one single person that would not say that's true for them. And I've worked with a lot of people on this planet, and every single one of them has a sense of purpose that they want to contribute something good to the planet, to the world, to the people. And so the way we do that is we begin by listening to our higher self. We begin by having a relationship with ourself. So does that make sense? Is that working for everybody? Do you have some comments? Is some connections with what I'm saying? Any feedback on that? Does it make sense? Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes. When we decide, I was thinking today a great deal about the fact that I've taken on the hobby, as some of you know, as there's a fish tank back there. There's a fish tank there. I've got some ponds outside. I'm a fish keeper, and that's a hobby that I have. And it's a hobby that, man, it's challenging. I thought it was easy. I thought I'd just buy some fish and I'd put them in the tank and put a little bit of heat in there and light, and they'd be fine. And that's not what happened. They, some of the fish survived and some of them died. And it's like I made an assumption that this is easy. This is just a hobby, right? It's easy. And then I realized it wasn't easy, that there was a lot to learn. And that's the same with if we take Marge is saying, I had one of those aha moments in massage school, and I realized I could feel energy. Exactly. We have an experience, and I think in that moment that we have that experience, we're awakened to another dimension of reality. We're awakened to something beyond our physical self. And in that moment, I think that's what cultivates the curiosity to be spiritual, to develop something else. So in relation to what I'm talking about with fish keeping, it's a hobby. And if we think of cultivating spirituality as a hobby, it becomes more simple. It's like, where do you begin? If you're taking spirituality as a hobby, you don't jump in with mantras and going to India. You might, but you start with what's really true for me, and how do I begin this relationship with a hobby? Now, with fish, I have these fish, but I'm having a relationship with myself in relation to those fish. This is something that I talked a lot about in my coach trainings and with my clients. It's like right relationship with my hobby, with my fish. Right relationship is I'm having a relationship with myself in relation to the fish. And so the same is if we take up spirituality as a hobby, is we are going, well, why am I doing that? What's in it? What's what's the curiosity? What's the fascination? And you might not know. I don't know any reason why I love to have fish. I don't understand it. I'm just called and I'm inspired, and I just am delighted in the practice of keeping fish. And like I said, I jumped in, and then there were some things that happened, and my fish didn't survive. Some of my fish didn't survive. And so I had to kind of start from scratch, begin to do some research, begin to look at what's going on with the dynamics. What is fish keeping? And, fish keeping isn't just you buy fish, you put them in an aquarium, and that's it. You've got to look at water parameters. You've got to look at the temperatures. You've got to look at the plants. You've got to look at what's in the plants all those little elements. And the same is true with, if we look at the hobby of spirituality, spiritual development, spirit keeping, it's like, what do I need to do that? What do I need? I need the basics. And it's really about the relationship that I'm having with myself while I'm having a relationship with my fish and the aquarium and the plants and all the rest of it. Excuse me. There is a movie, and I don't remember the name of the movie, but it was about this woman who was an addict, and she went into recovery, and then her process in recovery. And it was really well done. One of the things that it talked about was, before you get back into a relationship with a person, start by having a relationship with a plant. Start with a plant. And if you can keep that plant alive for 6 months, then get yourself a fish. And then if that's alive in 6 months, get yourself a dog or cat. So I found that really wonderful, because, and so true, for me at least, in a sense that when we take on a hobby, or we take on a relationship with somebody or something, we don't actually think about what the experience is and the level of responsibility and presence that's required in taking care of a plant or a person, a child, a marriage, a business. We don't think about that. We just go, oh, it's going to be so fun. It's going to be just great. But we don't know who we are in that relationship until we start with something where we look at and observe and witness and notice, how am I being with this plant? It's dying. That means I'm not doing something I should be doing, right? It's simple. Marge, you're a baker. And when things don't rise, you go, I didn't do something. I have to come back and look at what I missed in the recipe. So we become responsible to ourselves in how we be with this flourishing being. We hope to be a flourishing being. So a plant, it's like, can I keep a plant alive? What does it take for me to keep a plant alive? And we can go, that's no big deal. Just water it, right? But there has to be a presence and a commitment and a dedication to this little plant flourishing. And that's I want you to hopefully see the connection between, okay, so keeping a plant flourishing and flourishing myself. Okay, that's interesting. So I'm not good at plants. I'm better with aquariums, learning to be better with fish. But there's a level of responsibility, there's a level of dedication and heartfulness that has to come into this practice or this hobby of spirituality as well as any other. So that's the great thing about whatever we do in life, is that we have an opportunity to continually become more present to how we are being with ourselves in relation to this. I have my dog, Gracie. Some of you know Gracie and have seen Gracie. She's 12 years old. So, and she's the one I've had the longest relationship with, aside from my children. She's the one. And I watch myself, because she doesn't cry or yell at me. I'll say, let's let's go outside. And she'll like get all excited and she'll get ready to go outside. And then I'll stop and I'll do some more emails, or I'll get something to eat, or I'll put something away. And it's like, wow, I made a commitment to this animal to go outside. And now I'm disregarding that commitment. And watching myself do that, it's an ego thing. It's like, oh, this is more important. This is more important than my word. This is more important than my word. She doesn't care. She's just going to wait, and then we'll go out and we'll have a great time. But I watch that, and I watch when we're outside playing, when I'm distracted by, I want to be inside, I want to do something else, rather than being present to her. And coming back again to the spiritual, what I'm distracting myself when I'm with Gracie. I'm distracting myself from being totally present with her and connected to her and really engaged with her. I got a dog because I wanted to be present and engaged and play with her. I have a dog and I don't want to play. Okay, that's what we do a lot with our hobbies or with our children or our marriages. We get married or we have partners, but then we don't want to play. It's like, I'm busy. I'll talk to you later. Or we want the intimacy with the partnership. We want that connection, that presence, but then we distract ourselves because it gets scary, it gets uncomfortable. So coming back to, this is about the basics. This is about the basics of spirituality, so that if we get a handle on it and we go, yeah, I really do want this hobby, call it a practice, whatever, of cultivating awareness of spirituality, cultivating the awareness of myself and who I am as a human being and as an ego being, as a spiritual being, then we start to take it on with a little bit more consciousness. This isn't really about religion. This is not about, again, higher levels yet of how you be spiritual, whether it's meditation or prayer or just being kind and aligned with your truth. It's all basics of cultivating that. So any other questions right now? I'm going to take a break, just a glass of water and a breath. Any thoughts from you guys of what you're hearing, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense? Okay. There's there's a lot of talk about how important spirituality is in our lives. One book I was going to share with you, here it is. This is one of my favorite books. It's called Radical Remission, Surviving Cancer Against All Odds, the 9 key factors that can make a real difference. And Kelly Turner is the author. And what she did was she did some research, a lot of research into radical remissions. She worked as a counselor, I believe, working with cancer patients. And there were people that were coming into her office and they'd had a radical remission. And so she goes like, what is that? And when does it happen? And how does it happen? And she did her research. Then she became a PhD. Her research is of people all over the world who had radical remissions. And she said there were 75 things that everybody did that they did. There were 75 variables of what people did, but there were only 9 things that everybody did. Everyone who had a radical remission did these 9 things. And so one was radically change your diet and taking control of your health. And using herbs and supplements. So those were the only 3 that were related to, in a sense, food specifically. One was following your intuition. Now, following your intuition is another place where we're beginning to listen to something beyond our ego self. That part that says, I don't want to feel human. I don't want to feel anything but good and happy, and I want things the way I want them. I need to be in control. But when we start to look at what is your intuition and why is it so important to healing cancer, that's pretty amazing. And I'm not going to answer that question because I don't have the answer. But that following your intuition is, first of all, we have to figure out where is that in us. And a lot of times that intuition is part of that. I keep going here for our higher self, but that higher knowing within us. Deepening your spiritual connection. So getting more clear about who you are as a being and where you find a sense of sacredness, where you find a sense of divinity, where you find a sense of connection to something greater than yourself. What I'm attempting to not do here, what I'm wanting to do is to not talk about sort of about God or saints or angels or those higher beings that are part of the spirit, can be part of a spiritual conversation, can be part of a religious conversation. But right now, I just want to be in this moment with how we distract ourselves and how we can find perhaps an easier way to be with this conversation of relationship with ourselves, relationship with spirituality. So, again, deepening your spiritual connections, following your intuition, having a strong reason for living. I mean, that even is in a sense like you have to really, a lot of people are not really happy about being on the planet. And so many of us are doing sort of this passive suicide. We get cancer and we don't look at, do we really want to live? Do we really want to be on the planet? And quite often, if people are honest with themselves, they will begin to discuss how they're not happy in their lives, where they're not fulfilled, where they're limiting themselves, where they're feeling oppressed by others, where they're not allowing themselves to empower themselves to be their fullest self. And part of this 9 is releasing suppressed emotions, which again is getting real with who you are in here, not only as this person who does stuff, goes to work, has a family, pays the bills, all of those things, but the part that's like emotional is having an experience, a human experience. We kind of talked about this in the last previous live about that process of, and I just forgot what I was going to say, so I apologize. But we're having a human experience consistently, always, 24/7. We're having a human experience, but we're so more conscious of our mental goings on, all the thoughts that are going on, the physical sensations, all that stuff, is that we're not aware of the experience that we're having in this moment. And so quite often all those experiences get stuffed away until some point where they have to perhaps come out and be explored and shared with yourself. And so that's this part of us as well, as this emotional part that needs expression. So having a strong sense of reason for living, deepening our spiritual connection, embracing social support. And this is something that is part of this conversation too, in terms of quite often when people are cultivating a hobby, any hobby, it's nice to have other people around that are doing the same thing. I do a lot of YouTubing in terms of fish keeping, because there's nobody that I know here on Orcas where they're doing this. So I don't have that community. But that community online is so important to keep me conscious and aware and connected to people. And when we need the spiritual support, we can find that as well with others. Sometimes it's not where we think we'd like to get it. I would have liked to have gotten that kind of support with my family or with my husband, or even with a lot of my friends when I was younger. I didn't have that support. I didn't have that ability to go there. But over time, I have developed that support, and so that's a really important piece of this, is when you're developing as a spiritual being and you're getting clear about who you are as developing a being here, it's really important to have that support. Now, whether it's a social support like friends and family, whether it's a coach or a therapist or a spiritual director, spiritual guide, whether it's a minister or a fellowship like AA or 12-step programs, whatever that is, it doesn't matter. It's that you find a sense of connection with these people and you find a sense of yourself. Again, this is about you having a sense of, oh, I feel I can be myself around these people. I feel like I can say what's important to me. I can say what's true for me. I don't have to stifle myself anymore. And this is really, really important, again, where we're listening for who I am and where I am most myself. And when can I be the fullest expression of me? So every one of us wants this. Every one of us came into this world, this planet, wanting to be the fullest expression, the exuberant, vivacious, awesome, creative that we are. And we've been oppressed with just it's like a natural thing that happens. We come in and we're just so innocent and we just want to take it all in. We take it in, we take in the stuff that limits us as well as the stuff that grows us. And so quite often we have to begin to let go of the stuff that's like, wait, that was a limiting perspective. That's a limiting perspective. You know, when I was growing up, I thought getting married was the only thing to do. And so I did it. And I have a different perspective now. I would love to be in a relationship with somebody, but at the same time, I know what that does to me. And so my relationship with myself is more important than my relationship to someone else. So if I can be in right relationship with myself in relation to a special somebody, I'll go for it. But if I lose myself, I don't want to do that because it's taken me decades to get me, to find me, to appreciate me, to value me. And so this is the process that we're going through, like, over and over again. But if we again look at spirituality as a hobby or a practice, fish keeping is a practice, right? Riding a bike is a practice. There's all kinds of practices. Being a mother is a practice. Being at work as an employee or an employer is a practice. And those who are mindful of, like, I want to do this in a way that's in alignment with my highest truth and my highest self, we create the culture of that in terms of kindness and compassion, generosity, appreciation, love. And if those things are important to you, then you create the practice of making sure that that shows up every day to some degree. That to me is really, really important. One of my taglines is cultivating enlightened living. But what that means is cultivating, integrating spirituality into everyday life, integrating the sense of my higher purpose or my higher values, my higher principles, that I want to align with those every day. And I want to bring that into relationship to the world. So whether that's my fish or my dog or my clients or my writings or my videos with you, it's all there. It's like, how can I be most aligned with myself in alignment with you? Marge said, when I notice my intention, I can sense if I'm following the path of my ego or if I'm being with my higher self. I am weeding my garden to impress the neighbors, or am I weeding my garden to impress my neighbors or for the joy of being outdoors? So that's beautiful. Exactly. We begin, and that's where I want to go. So thanks for the segue, Marge. That's where I want to go with how we cultivate more of this awareness in us of this. If we think of the ego as the part of us that doesn't want to, that wants power and control and wants to feel good in the world and it wants to survive. The ego part has been with us as part of our soul for however long we've been around, and it wants to survive. It doesn't care about you surviving. It wants to survive. This is another part of our being that challenges us. But when we can go, okay, I've been letting this part of me run me because forever it's been more important for me to look good than it does to actually feel good in myself and align myself with that highest truth, that highest knowing. So thanks for that, Marge. That's really great. So I have my notes on my little iPad here, so I have to bring that up here. So I started writing down practices, 10 practices to begin this process. The first one is to notice when you're feeling discontent and notice when you're feeling happy. So one of the things I've mentioned in previous videos is about 80% of our time is spent in negative thinking, in negative feelings, in negativity. 80%. Now, if you are a person that is in any way aligned with being happier and more fulfilled, then by noticing, oh, I'm having negative thoughts. Then by noticing that, you become aware of, I don't want to be in those negative thoughts. And then you begin to just be able to become more conscious of that. I was working with a client today, and we were talking about a specific issue that had to do with how he was being with certain types of people. And I kind of nudged him in a way, and he went, wait. I'm just awakening. I'm just getting aware of the fact that I'm doing this. So give me a moment to kind of kind of be with this before we move on. So there's so much of who we are that we're not even aware of. A lot of unconsciousness. So when we can begin to build consciousness, we're going to build relationship with ourselves that is so much more healthy and more fulfilling and allows us to flourish. So an easy one. And if you guys have more, let me know, because I'd love to hear what other ideas that you have. But first of all, notice discontent or negativity, and notice when you're feeling happy. Notice what is it that brings you joy? Oh, I feel joyful. My dog, Gracie, I just love her so much. It just brings me joy. She brings me joy. And before I had fish, and I was thinking about fish, and I stopped at this fish pond, and I saw these koi, and the joy factor just went way up. And it was like, I don't want to deny myself that joy. So being able to know what brings you joy is a really good thing. Notice what doesn't bring you joy. Notice what brings you something else, the discontent. And then you're able to make those shifts potentially. But first, noticing creates the consciousness. Oh, I didn't even know I was thinking that. My daughter and I had a conversation, this was a couple of years ago, and I was talking and I was bad mouthing somebody, and she said, "Mom, why do you always have to put people down?" And I went, "I'm not." But I was. And I had to look at that. What's that about for me? What do I get out of saying things about people that put them down? What do I get out of that? Because it's always about us. And the more that I know that, the more that I'm clear about, oh boy, look what I'm doing right now. What do I get out of that? So that's another one, is looking when you're seeing what makes you happy, and the fulfillment that comes from here. Okay. So the next one, notice when your thoughts are negative in nature. We just did that one. Notice when you're distracting yourself, perhaps avoiding or ignoring stuff that you need to attend to. So again, this isn't about building guilt. This is not about, oh, I'm doing it wrong. This is not about any of this. This is about just noticing. We're all in this human experience. We're all in this experiment of being. I'm just experimenting with those little fish. I have no clue what's going on. And all I can do is experiment one day at a time with them. And if it works, they look great. If it doesn't working, they kind of lose their color. They lose their brilliance, their radiance, and their vibrancy. So when I can notice those things, then I can shift and maybe make those changes to make that more vibrant, and that makes me happy. So my point in saying that is sometimes life gets hard, and we want to avoid and ignore and distract ourselves from what's hard, those decisions that we need to make, but we don't know how. I was coaching a woman this week about her son, and she doesn't know how to be a mom to this guy right now. And so there's no right, wrong, or good or bad. And I'm not giving her advice. We're just saying, hey, what's it like for you in this experience? What's happening in the environment? Relationships with the father, with the husband, all of those kinds of relationship stuff. We don't know how to do that. We don't know how to do it. No matter who you watch, most of those people are not having the direct experience of that, which is another one on the list, is that we're constantly having an experience, and it takes. Let me start over again. Going back to ignoring. We want to ignore the hard stuff. So people who are in relationships with, wherever there's relationships with hard stuff, we're probably ignoring it. I've got a few on my own plate. And when we ignore it, we just postpone the inevitable that at some point we're going to have to deal with that. Now, again, taking the guilt off the plate is you might not be ready to deal with it. And so ignoring and distracting and avoiding is what you do. But there may be a point when you will be ready, and just know that. So when we're in that question of, am I avoiding this? Can I do something about it? Not yet. Okay, great. Let it go, and don't go into guilt about it. That just makes it worse. What's the point? This is true for a lot of people with substance addictions, whether it's alcohol or drugs or food or whatever. It's like, I'm not ready to give it up. It's like, okay, don't give it up. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Yes, but it's giving me diabetes. It's like, okay, when you're ready to make the decision, make the decision. But I'm not going to try to convince you to give it up, because I can't. And it's not necessary. Just when you're ready, you're ready. So again, the other thing I was saying is that we're a lot of times, until we have the direct experience of ourselves in this human experiment, then we can't really do anything different. We can't change what we're not aware of. We can't change what we're not conscious of. So this whole process of building this relationship with ourselves is about cultivating the capacity to make choices and make changes. David, you're here. I think you were here. Yes, you were here last time. Thank you for coming back. I think let's see what you say. There is necessary pain in life that helps us grow and build our muscles and self-esteem, and then unnecessary pain like stress. To avoid pain is to suppress it and deny reality, etc. That's absolutely, you said it great. It's like some of this pain helps build and grow us. It gives us something to work with and engage with, and it grows us if we're willing. Otherwise, we become victims and oppressed by it, and we'll just basically deplete and get sick and die, basically. And so it takes that willingness to see, from my perspective, everything is an opportunity for growth. Everything is an opportunity for learning about me, learning about my relationship with myself, learning about how to be on the planet as myself. It doesn't make me an expert on anybody else's spirituality or anybody else's life. It's just, I have a perspective and I'm sharing it in a way that could be helpful, so that you go, what's my perspective? And this is, again, a really, really important piece, is I'm talking, you're listening, and you're having an experience of both at the same time. And you're going, just like what David said, David, am I saying your name right? I hope so. David. Anyway, what you said is I'm having this experience, you're having another experience. And by you going, okay, Rosie's saying this, but it doesn't really jive with what I'm feeling or what I'm thinking or what works for me, that's a really good thing, because you're noticing that even though I'm saying what I'm saying, you're having a different experience and you have a different knowing. And when you can articulate that and share that with yourself, then you're cultivating that trust in yourself. You're cultivating that ability to trust that, no, Rosie's saying what she's saying, but my experience and my knowing is different. And I applaud you for that. That's so important. That's what this is all about. When you can acknowledge what's true for you, even though it's different than somebody else's, that's yours. And that's big kudos for you, because that's growing that relationship with yourself, that you can trust that you know what you know. And in that, you can build on that. But as long as we be submissive to what we've been taught, be submissive to the consensus view of reality, be submissive to the fear factors. If you do it differently, there's something bad that's going to happen to you. If you submit to that, then you don't get to stand for your own truth. And that's what this is all about. When we can stand for our own truth, we feel it in our hearts, much like Marge was saying. You could feel it. You can feel the difference when you're in your truth and when you're not in your truth. And the more that we can each be in our truth, the more that we can share that and be that community for others to share their truth. And that's really, really important. So again, I want to mention, we only have about 10 minutes left. So if you do have questions or thoughts, more thoughts, I would love to hear them from you. So we only have about 10 minutes left. So in this, again, I want to talk about, with every single client that I work with, we start out when it's like, when they say, well, what's the homework? What do I do in between our sessions? The most important practice is this noticing what gets in your way. Notice when you're distracting yourself. Notice when you're actually engaged. And what's that like for you to be engaged? When I'm, as I was mentioning, going outside and excuse me, and playing with Gracie, what's the difference between in the experience? Excuse me. Notice the difference between when I'm being distracted by what I think I should be doing in the house, and what it's like to be totally immersed in the experience of playing with her. Just notice the difference. Now, you don't have to choose. I don't have to choose, but in noticing that, there's an awareness that shows up. So every single one of my clients, we talk about this the next time. What did you notice in the next session? What did you notice? What shifted? What showed up? And in that, it cultivates an awareness of, I never saw that before. Marge says, when I'm actively engaged, I lose a sense of time. Yeah, it's good to notice. When we're so present in what we're doing, and when things are important enough to us, then we engage at a different level. We're not so distracted. The level of dedication and devotion really changes and shifts how we be with whatever it is we're being with, whether it's me and Gracie or my fish or my clients. My level of dedication brings up a higher level of presence for me and for them. David said, yes. David, it's Welsh. Okay. Welsh heritage. David is what my friends call me. Good to see you. Thank you, Dave. Dave is what my friends call you. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm glad you're here. So I'm trying to when we're building these muscles of noticing, we create more consciousness. And when we create consciousness, we go, wait, I don't want to think this way anymore. I'm going to start to train myself to stop doing that so that I can have more of this. And that's what we're working for, is more of what we want and less of what we don't want. And it takes training, and that training takes time. A lot of times, as I mentioned, a lot of people will go, they're seeking spirituality, and so they're seeking in books, they're seeking in India, they're seeking wherever they are in ashrams to get something. And what they forget is that this is about the relationship with ourselves, with the ego self, with the human self, with the divine self, with the higher self. But we have to start someplace, and in that is the basics of building relationship and being responsible with ourselves. Being responsible as in, I'm telling my truth. I'm going to be accountable for my word. I'm going to show up when I say I'm going to show up, because I feel better in myself when I do that. And that's what it's all about, is feeling better within ourselves. And when we feel better within ourselves, we're better people. In a sense, we're able to be kinder. We're able to be more generous. We're able to be more spontaneous. We're able to be more playful and laugh more. And that's so healing for ourselves and the people around us. And that's what I want for all of us. Hope you want that too. I just assume because you're here. So thank you for that. If you have a moment, like I said, we just have a few moments left. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love you to do that. If you haven't liked this yet, please do. That really helps me know that what I'm saying is valuable and important to you. So if you can give me a thumbs up, that would be great. And again, subscribe. And if you want notifications of when these are happening or other videos I'm doing, just click that notification thing and that will happen. I would love to hear what's most valuable for you of what you've heard in the time that you've been here. So if you have something that you'd like to share, I would really appreciate hearing that. In the meantime, I'll just see if there's any other things that I want to share here. So the most important thing I want to leave you with is to begin this process. If David and Marge, you've both been here, and you both have cultivated a great deal of relationship with yourselves. That's very clear. And this development of a spiritual relationship is also very clear. So that, I keep forgetting what I'm going to say. I'm thinking about the time, and I'm thinking about this, and I've got these distractions, right? This is the distracting part, is I've just been distracting. I got distracted by all of those little pieces and forgot what I wanted to say. But I so appreciate those of you who have shared tonight, and that you're here, that you are dedicated and devoted to this, pursuing this higher, better, clearer relationship with yourself. And in the elements of that basicness, that you up-level yourself continually over and over again. And that's such an important practice. And staying in the practice, that's challenging, especially when it gets hard, but staying present in it, again, you can get distracted because it gets hard sometimes. And much like you said too, David, is that we're always, when it gets hard, it means we're ready to level up again. And when it gets hard again, we're leveling up again. And it puts us up against the edges of our capacities, to what we think is our capacities to grow. I think of us as always being in an internship where we're learning new skills, we're learning new ways of thinking, we're expanding our capacities. And when we've outgrown our apprenticeship, then we move on to the next apprenticeship. I said internship, but basically apprenticeship. And so we're always growing towards that master level of mastery for ourselves. So I think that's pretty much it for now. Again, thanks for being here, you guys. And if you have anything you'd like me to talk about in another video, please comment below or comment here, and that will make it really, really helpful. And March says, so we can celebrate difficulties. Absolutely. Whenever a client says to me, hey, I'm in this hard time, I'm going through this real struggle, I'll go, woohoo! because I know they're about to break through into another level of themselves. Great work. So thanks again, you guys. Bye for now.